IVM.
It can be said that there's more money chasing the Indian market today than there are ideas. So, what is money chasing in today's India? What are the big areas of future growth for those who are wanting to build brands and businesses in this market? How has the venture fund narrative shaped up in India? Is there a so to say Indian way of venture funding? Does a local lens make for a greater success even for VCs, especially now that we are building for a 600 million market and not just a 50 million? And what are the secrets behind the large unicorns that are being built out of India today? Welcome to Speak Easy with Dheeraj Sinha, and today I'm talking to Anand Lunia, founding partner at India Quotient, a venture capital company born out of India, who have invested behind ShareChat, Sugar, Lending Cart, and Pagar Book, to name a few. Anand has also been the VC behind Rebel Foods, Carvale, and Redbus. Anand, welcome to my podcast. Great to have you. Thank you for making time for this.
Thanks, Dheeraj. Glad to be here.
Excellent. So, Anand, the whole philosophy behind your venture fund is it's called India Quotient. It's about India. I'd like to start with why a fund for India and how's the journey been like at that level?
Thanks for this question, Dheeraj. When I started my career in the venture industry in around 2007, right? The venture capital was something that Indians were not supposed to understand. Right? To be in the industry, either as a founder or as an investor, you had to be bred in US, ideally closer to Silicon Valley. And only if you had passed through that experience, only then you were sort of qualified. You had to have an accent, for example. Right? If you didn't have an accent, what startup will you do and what funding will you do? At the same time, what I saw for a 5-year period starting from 6, 7 to 11, 12 is most of these people who would come from abroad, and they were largely Indians and NRI kind of Indians, they would sort of end up like how tourists are taken for a ride in Agra.
Yeah.
Came to India because I thought I'm an expert of traveling and all of that. But when I went to India, this is what happened, that what happened. And because these people didn't really understand what's going on in India, and they didn't understand what the market is going to be, how to deal with the people here, etc., etc. Right? They didn't know how to filter people. So for a while, people, lived in their own bubble. Right? I'll give you an example of a bubble, and this was one reason where I coined the term India Quotient. Is that I pitched this company called Redbus. You must have heard about it.
Yes.
Bus ticket, right? We all, and however, there is a certain privileged class of people who doesn't take a bus ride. Right? Now, this investor had come from Singapore. He used to, Indian guy. He would park himself in Oberoi Suites for a month or so every now and then. And this gentleman, I pitched him Redbus. He was like, yeah, this is similar to Greyhound in US. Great idea, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk on Monday. Monday, I call him again and said, Anand, over the weekend, I spoke to everybody and asked them, have you used Redbus? And nobody has used Redbus. In fact, they don't even use a bus.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, of course they don't use a bus because you're staying in Oberoi Suites, man. I mean, you should not be asking around yourself, right? I mean, This is not the class divide in India is too stark. And that's when I started coining this term called India Quotient. It started as a blog. I probably realized that I'm better as an investor than a blogger. So use the same domain name for the firm India Quotient. The idea being that, understanding India is a separate kind of quotient itself, right? And separate kind of intelligence. And that's what, one needs to use if you're starting a company or if you are investing in a company.
Absolutely. And Anand, last time we were speaking about, you had this whole thought of saying that unlike say in Silicon Valley, where you make for people like yourself, right? You make.
Yeah, absolutely. So true.
Yeah.
Here, the educated class, the people who can code, people who can, people like you and I who got to business schools, we live in a different bubble, right? I mean, and that market is very small. Anything that targets you and I will not succeed, right? I mean, whereas in Silicon Valley, it's the other way around. The whole country is practically a middle class, right? When the bulk of the very fat middle class And maybe then there's a 5% top and 5% bottom, or maybe 10% bottom. But India is like, top 1% people who are the elites. And there is probably another 2-3% of middle class. And 90% of the country is what it is, right? I mean, and these people definitely have a very different life from what we live. And so building for yourself and building what you will use yourself, what you are excited about, never works. I'll give you another example. There was a very good company again. Thankfully, I forget the name. The company shut down. Very smart girl, some Wharton educated, all of that. And she came and said, I want to start a line of Western wear, online company for a Western wear brand, right? I was like, okay, but who wears a Western wear brand? And she said, no, all my friends are having a tough time, finding Western wear clothes. I said, obviously, because nobody in India wears it. That's why you're having a tough time. You are yourself saying the market is so small. No. We all want to wear Western wear and, we're not finding it. So there is a large market here. Now, what happens is in the venture world, again, if you see, right, you go to all the girls, they again like dressed in Western wear, right? You go to Bombay, your friend circle, all your business school friends or your college friends will all be dressed in Western wear, if not always, most of the time. But at the same time, you go to a normal way, like go to Infosys campus, boss. I mean, like you will struggle to find somebody in Western wear, right?
Yeah.
And that's the stark difference, right? So the world changes so fast the moment you go out 2 kilometers from your bubble, right? And you can't really, you on the contrary, this is like, thankfully, if you've stayed close to your roots and if you are happy to step out and see the world the way you want to see, I'll try to bring in the example of Warren Buffett here.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, we can all learn from him different parts of his life. But one thing I learned from him was that, a lot of people have said that, he's a very simple life. He goes to the same McDonald's and, has the same soft drink that he used to have 50 years ago and all of that. Right? I feel that is a superpower of the investor.
Yeah.
Because if you look at what he invests, bulk of his investments are into things that masses consume, right? The middle class consume, right? And I feel that if he had sort of scaled up his lifestyle, quickly as soon as he came into money, I don't think he would have retained the connect with the middle class America, right? And very soon, instead of a very intuitive investor who thinks around, like investing in a candy company or a cola company or a sauce company or a insurance company, he would have probably become a hedge fund manager because you want to stay at the top and don't really want to look at what's happening on the ground, right? And I think that is a very important lesson. In fact, even in Silicon Valley, interestingly, a lot of VCs, just to make sure that they're connected, they actually don't change their homes. They continue to live in the same middle class locality where they were living 20 years ago because they sort of understand that, this is where I get the ideas from. In India, the only thing is the middle class is again, the educated middle class is again so far away that without really going down there and actually surveying the country, it's very difficult to understand and imagine, what will work in India.
Yeah, no, amazing. And I want to go a little deeper into this whole how to play the India game, right? And my own theory has been that in last one decade, right? Last decade, this major shift has happened where erstwhile, India was run by a small empowered majority, right? English speaking, these are people who had references, they could get loans, right? I mean, bureaucrats, business class, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
In last 10 years, because of technology, geo, etc., even the political environment in the country, the power has shifted dramatically to the hitherto unempowered majority of the country. And now the majority is running the country. Whether you look at politics, you look at cricket, you look at hockey, you look at Olympics, you look at business, and finally the India's majority has come to power.
Absolutely it has, Dheeraj. And you are right. The power equation has shifted, right? I mean, just imagine, I'll give you examples of two classes, right? The maids, right?
Yeah.
And the delivery boys, right? How come a delivery boy in Bangalore makes far more money than the Infosys fresh graduate, right? It's a very surprising thing, which is in a way very similar to what happens in America, by the way. The blue collar workers typically will have more power and at least in the beginning of their career will typically make more money than a white collar clerk. Right? And that's sort of happening in India also. Right? Collectively, people have access to information, they have access to jobs, they have access to money also. But I'd say, connection is the most important thing and sort of combines people into classes. And willy-nilly, you will find that, suddenly in the last 20 years, the salaries of drivers for example,
Yeah.
has gone up from 2,500 rupees, Dheeraj, in Bombay. It's 20 plus now, right? And
Yes,
then
absolutely.
I mean, it's way more than 20 because you are giving 1 month holiday, 1 month bonus, you are giving overtime, you pay separately when you call them on Sundays, all of that, right? And net, this salary increase has been dramatic, like 7-8 times in the last 20 years, versus the salary of a white collar worker typically working in
Yes.
IT is not even 2x. In 20 years, the entry salary of Infosys has gone up from 2.25 lakhs to 4 lakh rupees.
Mm.
Now that hasn't moved at all. Why? Because for the drivers, multiple options are available now. You can be a delivery boy, you can join Uber, you can actually run your own car, right? So these options have opened up because of the country opening up, technology, and I think there are four things which are empowering people. Which is what I
Mm.
call. One is the whole broadband and information, right?
Yes.
Cheaper smartphones. So that is one. Information is one empowerment. Second is everybody has the ability to transact and transfer money. So UPI empowers a lot of people into small businesses. Being the pan wala being able to accept a Paytm is
Yes.
seriously empowering. Being able to transfer money to his family whenever they need is very empowering. The third empowerment has come from bank accounts. People know the power of saving, and people can borrow if they have a bank account. Finally, is power. Power is electrical power.
Yeah.
We are getting privilege, right? So we take for granted ki boss, I will have full day electricity, which is why I'm able to work from home. Now the small businessman doesn't have the privilege. People used to think why will he use software? He doesn't want to use software. He only enjoys pen and paper. That's not true. The poor fellow can't use the software because he doesn't have power. He doesn't have electricity.
Yeah.
And suddenly electricity makes women more productive. In rural households, they can use a mixer grinder instead of grinding with your own hands. That kind of empowerment has actually made people more productive and even more aware, right? I mean, okay, boss, बिजली आने से ये होता है. It's not just about one bulb going for 2 hours in a night so I can read a book. It's not just about that, right? It's about actually becoming more productive in my life. And the whole machinery, how people look for opportunities in let's say cities, right? That same opportunity now has been flattened and available to everybody, and that's the beauty of it, right? And which is sort of why I say that nobody wants to immigrate into cities as much as it was earlier. Right? Particularly, nobody wants to shift to hellholes like Bombay, right? I mean, like where you pay 10,000 rupees a month for a 10 by 10 room, right? Way too expensive. And at the same time, if you want to, if you're already in Bombay, you will sort of collectively command a reasonably good amount of premium, right? So the maids, for example, nobody first of all wants to become a maid. All the kids of the maids are going into a 2,000 rupee per month St. Xavier's school, right? I mean, there are so many Catholic schools all over the country. And naturally, if you don't want to become maid, the maids are in short supply. And the salaries are, I mean, my thesis is that maids will command in the next 5-6 years. In metro cities, they'll command 50,000 rupees, right? And that's my thesis because there's no inward migration right now. Nobody wants to migrate to a city, particularly to be a maid. Right.
Yeah.
There are enough jobs at beauty parlor, a lot of jobs for women, younger kids,
Retail,
a lot of jobs, right?
Yeah.
And that is where the empowerment is coming from. People, as they call it in Hindi, izzat wala kaam karna hai. Right?
Yeah.
And hence a maid wala job will have to be very, very, will also typically come with 1 or 2 holidays a week and with a lot of money.
Yeah, hopefully work from home has trained a lot of us to
well, it has no, you are right, Dheeraj, because within a few years it's already happening. Affording a maid is a really, really expensive proposition for most people. And similarly, affording a driver is also typically earlier, the middle class, even if you are like a bloody clerk somewhere, you can afford a driver and you can afford a maid. That's not impossible now.
Yeah.
That privilege of having a maid and a driver will be only restricted to the real rich, like all Western countries, right? I mean, which I would say that, that's like a real progress because, people are getting paid for something according to the dignity of the job.
Yes. I want to talk to you about some of the platforms you've helped build as an investor, right? And which again, as we spoke, dials back to this whole idea of building for the 500-600 million India, not for the 50 million India, right? And the fact that the language of consumption, the way you consume through UX UI is so different, right? I mean, we do a lot of work for global brands. I mean, we built Amazon in India, we're building Spotify in India, but there comes a stage, right, when a Spotify and a Gaana is neck to neck, and the UX UI is coming into play because the Spotify UX UI is very international and slick, and the Gaana UX UI is very bright, India colored, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And most of these global players at some stage have said that we have to build for India speeds, we have to build for India UX UI and so on and so forth.
No, you're right. Very interesting that people call it tasteful versus tasteless. Ghana interface is not as tasteful, I'd say. We funded this company called ShareChat, Dheeraj. Now what people consume there will be what people who are sort of not very smart in English will consume, right? The kind of jokes they will consume, the kind of fonts they love, right? Red, bright, yellow fonts, which typically you receive greetings in your family WhatsApp groups, right? Good morning and Shubh Deepavali and all of those greetings you receive. The fonts are really, really bright and shiny and sort of how the country is. It's a colorful country, right? Now you can't really apply a Western taste here. What's happened? I'll just give an example. Let's close your eyes and imagine what you think internet is. Okay. When you say internet, the first thing you'll probably see some kind of a browser. Internet is a browser for me. What do I do on internet? I go and type a URL or I go to the search bar and search for something, right? Now, this is sort of our natural behavior, right? I've been born and brought up like that. I started at the age of maybe 10, I started using Internet Explorer and I know how to do a logical search string, right? I mean, now because I have good English, I have good reasoning skills. I can type a logical search strings and I can use Google to reach wherever I want to reach, right? Now, that is an assumption that we have taken for rest of the whole world also, which is not true. Somebody who starts internet at the age of 30 for the first time, he doesn't imagine the internet to be a browser with a address bar, right? And he, by the way, you sort of assume that this guy has an email ID and he's been using email forever. So what happened, I'll tell you one of the master strokes of why WhatsApp worked very well against Facebook. In the early days, WhatsApp was the only chat platform where you could log in through a phone number. If you wanted to use Facebook chat, you had to have an email ID. Now, the assumption of a Silicon Valley engineer was very clear कि बस हर एक के पास में everybody has to have a email ID. How can there be a human being who's an adult at 18 and doesn't have an email ID, right? Now, WhatsApp was like, boss, no, people don't really need email in their normal lives. And for the longest time, WhatsApp worked simply because you just needed your mobile phone number and there was no entry barrier, no friction there. The other part was about how simple it was just chatting. Interestingly, Dheeraj, even WhatsApp got it wrong. How? Because they designed it for typing. Right?
Yeah.
And now you come to India. Boss, anybody who types very well in Hindi definitely is educated enough to type very well in English also. That's a safe assumption. Any language, right? I mean, I have not met anybody who has very poor English, but extremely great Hindi typing skills on a smartphone. So what did people start doing? People started exchanging content. If I have to wish happy birthday to Dheeraj, the happy birthday wish is about me, Anand Lunia. It's not about Dheeraj. So, hey champ, have a blast, have a great day, miss you, blah, 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 right? The way I will draft my greeting will be to make Anand Lunia come out as a great rock star, right? It's not about Dheeraj's birthday. It's about, how great I am in writing and wishing people, right? And that's what my objective of a greeting is. And I'll use the best of English language and best phrases and, best references and all of that. A normal person in India, first of all, can't type in English, hesitant, not sure of his own grammar, blah, 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 doesn't know the right words, blah, blah, blah. What he will do or she will do, she will go pick up an image, which is a happy birthday, right? Try to modify it or not modify it, simply forward it to you.
Yeah.
Hey, Dheeraj, happy birthday, right? This is how simple people are, and that's the stark difference, how people think, right? And hence, the bigger use case of WhatsApp ended up becoming exchanging content.
Yeah.
And not typing and chatting. Whereas the whole world kept assuming for a long time it's a chat app. It's not a chat app. It's a content consumption app. Now it's also a search app. I mean, and because of WhatsApp, the people felt कि ये अच्छा है, ये easy है. I'm in a comfort zone. I'm not in front of the whole world. I'm in front of a group of people that I know. Right? Now, if I want to find out, what are the flight options available from here to Mauritius, I will go. I will know which website to go. Type into URL. I know how to search for a flight timing and all of that, right? And what the fares are and how to navigate all the complex navigations that airline websites have somehow try to trap you into something or the other. But a normal guy, what they will do, they will go to WhatsApp. In some friends ka group, they will say कि भाई लोग ये कितने बजे की flight जाती है और क्या cost है इसका. Somebody will reply. So for him, whatever the rest of the internet was doing, WhatsApp groups are doing the same function, right?
Yeah, and it's a known group.
It's a known group. So I am comfortable. I am not hesitant here, and somebody will respond to me. Right? What is the bus timing? What is the train timing? Somebody will respond with something, right? And there will always be some enthu punter in the group who will be happy to help. And this is sort of what people think is internet, right? When you tell people what is internet, this is what internet is, right? These people don't have. They have not been very sophisticated users who have been using internet for last 10 years. For you and I, if you want to close a window, you know that you have to go to the left topmost corner. And there's a cross button, you close the window. People don't know that. You will be surprised that half of the country, even today, doesn't know that this is supposed to be a user experience principle.
Yeah, because you've come through it on a mobile phone.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
which is why the assumption to make that everybody knows that, there is a menu button which will drop down.
Yeah.
People don't know that, and that assumption is the wrong assumption. And this is sort of reflects in everything. The choice of
Mm.
fonts, choice of color. For the longest time, Dheeraj, again, this happened where a lot of investors were intrigued by the numbers ShareChat was producing. We had
Mm.
millions of people using us every day, but they would open the app and say, "कि यार ये क्या चल रहा है? I don't understand what's going on." Because I can't understand the font. It looks so ugly. Like you
Yeah.
said, right? It's not colorful enough. And for us, only the colorful content will get interactions, right? I mean, only that will
Yeah.
be getting interest. And that's the beauty of it, beauty of it, which is sort of why India quotient, becomes an extra edge. Understanding
Mm.
India becomes an additional edge if you want to do business in India. We are
Yeah.
not a homogeneous country. There are layers, right? I mean, the difference you see between metro to within a metro, you will see difference between Bandra and let's say a Borivali. And from Borivali, you will see a difference from Borivali to Nagpur, and from there to a smaller town, and from there to a village. There are multiple layers, right? And
Yeah.
these layers are there across the board, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, it's a fascinating market to be in.
No, absolutely. And typically, Anand, I mean, when it comes to investing, right, the whole feeling is that basically money chases technology and products, right, which is also perhaps truth when you look at the investment pie. But there's also rise of at least two things that I can see. I'm sure you can see a lot more. Rise of D2C brands, right? Some of them are scaling very well. Also, rise of a lot of small medium entrepreneur B2B platforms, softwares enabling the B2B business, whether in
Yeah.
terms of financing, business, khata book, and so on and so forth. What do you feel? What's money chasing right now, and what are you chasing?
Well, finally, money is chasing an audience, right?
Hmm.
And the good part is because of some of the stuff that I told you earlier about, information access, power access, payments access, banking access, there are new large audiences opening up now, right?
Hmm.
So there is a segment of the market which is in the metros, perpetually stuck to their phone, loves Instagram, loves Tinder, those kind of apps, loves Spotify, maybe will buy Hotstar or Netflix, right? Or maybe
Hmm.
share a Netflix password with a friend. There
Yeah.
is that audience, but there is a different audience. I'll give you an example. We have a company called Bharat Agri,
Hmm.
where Bharat Agri is just doing advisory, like a robo advisory for farmers to how to grow better crops. We don't
Hmm.
give them anything. We simply give them advice and we charge money from them.
Hmm.
Every month, we are collecting money from 10,000 farmers
Wow.
for a 1 year subscription, 1 season subscription, for them to get advice from us. That's all. Now, in a country where if you sit in the metro and you read simply your pink newspapers and all of that, you will imagine that the farmers are such a class that they will never pay for anything. They always live on subsidies, right? That's what you will imagine. But here we have 10,000 farmers signing up for a digital subscription. Right? In fact,
Yeah.
we typically charge more than what Hotstar would charge for a year. Right? So they are actually paying for good payment for advice. They use UPI to transfer their money. Right? And this is a whole new audience opening up.
Hmm.
And that's the audience that money is now seeking. Okay, boss, naya market khul raha hai. This is a new audience,
Hmm.
new needs. And the good part is that this audience, for example, if I say, Amazon had one audience, right? Flipkart had one audience of e-commerce buyers. And suddenly from nowhere, you have a company called Meesho,
Yes. Yeah.
which is suddenly selling to a whole new breed of buyers. Maybe lower cost, maybe all of that is fine, but they have figured out a completely new audience who probably found navigating Amazon. By the way, for example, buying a earphone on Amazon is completely impossible now. With so many choices, so many things to
Yeah.
decide, so many ratings, blah blah blah. It's just impossible for somebody to navigate, right? What people want to do is, let me ask somebody. Here, somebody I know, my neighbor is dealing with Meesho. That person will get me a good earphone. Good enough,
Hmm.
right? I don't want to have too much of cognitive overload just
Yeah.
for an earphone. Now these audiences are opening up, and these audiences will not have the same winner. So what the people who won the metro audience, right, and the audience which people were catering to all this while, that same player will not win. So new players will emerge and new winners
Hmm.
will emerge, right? And that's what the money is chasing right now.
Hmm.
To that
Interesting. Very
extent,
interesting.
you mentioned D2C brands, Dheeraj.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, people have thought that D2C brand is about introducing a premium brand in India.
Hmm.
Typically, that's what the assumption is, right? That's not where it will go. D2C brands will emerge largely in goods which are lower priced than what they are today. Right now, most of the brands are built in malls. There are probably 50, 60 malls in the whole country, maybe including high streets. A brand can put 200 selling points today, right? And these are very expensive sales points, retail points. So most of the brands are pretty expensive because they have to
Yeah.
solve for the retail cost, and then they sell online at the same price. A D2C brand would probably solve for a large market, right? Why would a D2C brand stay in the same metro city where people have multiple choices, right? I feel the D2C brand, and this is sort of how the whole evolution of everything starts, right? Anybody who comes to India or anybody who thinks of initially, they'll start, okay, let me build for the city people because that's what they know. But eventually entrepreneurs learn and say, okay, let us go where the audience is.
Yeah.
And I'm expecting the D2C brands to sort of, say, okay, but in India, for example, the poor people suffer so much with footwear because 500 rupee footwear, right, 200 rupee footwear is all they can afford, and they get really, really poor quality. To that extent, somebody who will buy a expensive shoe will have a better deal because the shoe lasts for much longer, right, and much more value for money. But poor people don't get value for money. They are happy. Boss, I can't afford Bata, but can somebody give me in 400 rupees a reliable shoe which will have a warranty for 6 months?
Yeah.
So that's not there today. It doesn't exist because nobody thinks of those people as a market. And with technology and internet, that market is opening up. And I feel that this D2C wave will go into lower end of the market where volumes are very high, right? And they will really use leverage digital distribution efficiently. And that's the new market I think money will chase. Smart money is already betting behind those, right? I mean, not too many people are funding cupcake, premium vegan cupcake. Hardly anybody, I'll say. Nobody.
or pet friendly products for that.
Pet friendly products or again organic food for pets, right? I mean, nobody's funding those kind of food. Off and on you might see another organic food line for pets, but not too often. Bulk of the market is following the larger audiences.
Yeah, amazing, awesome. We'll take a quick break, Anand, and we'll come back.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Agla Station Adulthood, Ritasha and Ayushi are in conversation with journalist Pallavi Iyer. They talk about her having lived in so many different cities, adulting through it all, and what motherhood means to her and how young folk can lead better lives and support the nation's progress. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth asks if energy management is just a better way of time management. Tune in to find out if this is practical and possible. On Khel Niti, Rajiv Mishra, Ayaz Memon and Sabah Karim talk about Team India's elimination from the T20 World Cup, Pakistan's new team, and New Zealand stepping into the semi-finals. On Smile India, Shifa discusses a Kolkata-based NGO that's trying to help single-screen cinema survive. And on Hans Vani, hear the story Mere Liye Ek Minute and find out why a depressed man mourns his own death by observing silence for a whole minute. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do follow us on YouTube. We have a number of different channels. You can find them on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube, where you'll be able to take a look at all of the channels we have. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much. You make this possible.
And welcome back. It's an amazing conversation. I want to pick your mind a bit on the Thrasio model, right? The whole idea of collecting a set of brands, and some people in India are beginning to think like that as well. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Where do you think is that headed?
Dheeraj, if you don't mind, right? I'd love to hear from you how you describe a brand. What is a brand?
See, I would say increasingly what's happened is a brand, to my mind, is something that helps you drive business. Right. Yeah. So my definition of brand is as big as that. I'm not saying a lipstick brand is a brand, right? I think Infosys is a brand because somebody picks up Infosys saying that, as you said, there's no cognitive, overload on this. I will be successful using Infosys for my company. So that's how I define brands.
Yeah. No, good point. So you're saying that a brand means there's a performance assurance or performance.
Assurance, yes. And helps me make choice easy as a consumer.
Yeah. And as a consumer, it also gives me a certain sense of well-being and certain sense of elevation, or certain sense of status, for example, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be expensive brand. But typically, brands are built around values. I mean, most brands, if you look at Infosys, the first thing when you say Infosys, and it's a great brand to say, right? The first thing that will come to your mind is how well NRN and then Nandan Nilekani and how well these people built the company, what kind of policies they had, what value systems they had. It again boils down to the founders there, right?
Yeah.
So Infosys and the founders are connected, although the
Absolutely.
founders stopped managing the company for years now, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
even today, it is still defined by the founders, right?
yeah.
And if you've seen, the founders still continue to have a say. They will be upset with a few things that are happening by the management. So founders
Yeah.
are a very important part of the brand, right? I mean, any brand.
Mm.
In fact, if I see when was the last time a bunch of ex-consultants who were hired guns built a great brand, right? Just one brand. Forget
Yeah.
a bouquet of 100 brands. I can't remember an example, right?
Yeah.
Unless somebody owns the thing and has serious skin in the game and
Yeah.
brings the values that they want to reflect to the brand, right? I mean, which is very important. Right? Infosys has a
Yeah.
lot of value around frugality, how to treat people, long-term employment, quality, all of that, right? Now, all of these things are values that the founders will bring to a brand, right? Now you say that, okay, all that is not important, right? Forget the founders, get rid of them. Let's put collectively all of these brands into one, what do you call, one warehouse, right? And store them together. It'll become more efficient. It does. There is a serious efficiency, and a lot of gains will come when you combine a lot of brands under one umbrella, one ownership. But what you forget is that it's a very competitive world. Most of these things are brands, meaning they're easier to produce, but they sell well because of the brand value, right? The value that the brand brings. Otherwise, there is no difficulty replicating the same thing. Now, every time a brand goes out of business and goes into a Thrasio model, it will give room to competition.
Yeah.
And some other entrepreneurs say, okay, boss, this particular cosmetic brand or this particular, bags brand has gone into this Thrasio model, and now the room is clear for me to build another brand.
Yeah. This vacuum. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and if you also, let's look at deteriorating brands, Dheeraj, and I'm sure you have a lot of examples. If you want to give an example of brand which are deteriorated because of poor management, right? Or if I forget poor management, lack of attention.
Yeah.
Look at Hindustan Lever and PNG. I mean, they are like the real Thrasios of the world, right?
Yeah.
This Thrasio is okay, but this is what they've been doing. I mean, Hindustan Lever to Thrasio hi hai na? Matlab, they've been building Thrasio only all their life, right? I mean, and I'm sure those people are like wondering now, what is this new thing? She's like a unicorn. And I've been building brands for the last 20 years in Hindustan.
Yeah.
Nobody took notice here. So if you look at even they're also they how many brands does a company like Hindustan Lever or PNG build? Very few, right? I mean,
Very few. Very
few. I mean, very selective, very few.
Five or six power brands which go across, not more than
absolutely right. And they do it because they want to pick a power brand. The brand doesn't do well. Brand has like a sub 1,000 crore rupee revenue potential. They'll kill it, right? I mean, they say, I don't want a smaller brand, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't understand this thesis of like if Hindustan Lever were a company full of hundreds of brands, no brand bigger than 100 crore rupees revenue, right? How will it work? It just wouldn't work. And then to imagine that Hindustan Lever can grow all of these brands, all of these hundreds of brands together, I am sure they will give up. I mean, these are really great brand machines, right? I mean, very successful brand machines. So I think in my mind, okay, I mean, I'm sort of old style in this, Dheeraj. I think this is all financial engineering, right? And these companies are probably just 2-3 years old. I believe in this thing called whatever is the oldest will last longest, right? So the oldest method of brands is sort of what Hindustan Lever and PNG have been doing.
Yeah.
That method of very selective, experimenting and building a power brand or killing the rest of them. That experiment will continue, and that is what will last longer. Thrasio is probably 3 years old in the world and probably has a life of 3 more years. That's my take on this.
Amazing. But one of the things you're also saying, Anand, very categorically is that scale is so important, right? It's not.
At each brand level.
It's not a long tail of a portfolio game which will play out.
No, it should not be. Exactly. No, I mean, how do you hire a celebrity for each brand? Now today, a well-loved brand means typically there's a celebrity behind it, there's a founder behind it, there's a lot of history behind it, right?
Yeah.
And they stick to values. I mean, look at what Cadbury's did when they faced this crisis of the insect crisis, the germs, right? I mean, they revamped the brand. Maggie went through it. Right?
Yes.
And I can't imagine, so many things will go wrong when you have 100 brands under one company. I don't think that they will be able to really do any justice there.
Yeah, and you'll not be able to create deep value for any of them.
No. I think it's financial engineering. I think the objective is just to sort of, leverage the arbitrage between how much you can buy a brand for and how much will the public markets pay for it.
Yeah.
And public markets are too generous right now.
Yeah.
So I think that's what is going on.
Yeah. And Anand, what do you look for in founders? What do you back? I mean, are you backing people? You're saying business models will pivot. Don't worry, I like you guys. I like your hunger. You get stuff. We will make whatever we make. Or are you looking at, I see you have a good POC. You've been doing well for 3 years. Your curve looks good. Let me back you. How are you making those choices? And what would you recommend for young entrepreneurs? What path to take? Yeah. 2 questions actually in that.
So thanks. Dheeraj, I look at 2 extreme ends, right? So the first thing is the market, right? The choice of the market. The market has to be very large. It should be ripe for disruption. Existing competition should be stale or old and, not able to move. And market structure should be such that, somebody can make a lot of money. So a lot of focus on the market. And on the other extreme, a lot of focus on the founder, right? Is this the right guy for this market? Is he a missionary? Is he in this market because he loves this market? Or is he simply let's say a consultant or a banker or a IIM MBA who's saying, oh boss, I don't like a job, so let me start a startup, right? What is he looking for, right? In the middle, there is the POC, there is the business model, distribution strategy, how do you build a brand, what kind of pricing, blah, 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 all of that, right? A lot of stuff happens between the market and the founder, right? And I don't need to look at that, right? There's no point. My strong belief is 2 things will happen. In a great market, the market will pull the product out of a good entrepreneur. A good entrepreneur will be able to respond to the market, and the market will pull the product out of the founder. In a bad founder will resist what the market says to him, will resist the feedback, and will miss the opportunity. In a bad market, you put anybody, you put even a Steve Jobs, nothing will happen, right? So again, market is the most important. And my advice to young founders would be to spend a lot more time on picking the right market, studying the right opportunities, which goes back to the India quotient, Dheeraj, right? You can't sit in your ivory tower and, in your gated community in Lokhandwala and then that you will get ideas. You will have to travel. You will have to interact with people of all sorts, right? Have a very strong sense of observation. I'll give an example of observation, Dheeraj. Again, very interesting thing that comes out to my mind. And again, I told you about this Western wear thing, right?
Yeah.
My observation when I was analyzing this opportunity was that Indian wear is getting westernized. Yeah. At the same time, people are sticking to their cultural roots and not wearing Western wear. So Indian wear, if you see, Indian wear ke andar dupatta gayab ho gaya. The dupatta is gone forever now, right? You rarely see somebody wearing a dupatta even in a small town. Okay. First step towards Western wear. Second, the bottom, the salwar kameez, actually has become similar to a tights. Yeah. From Western wear, right? Yeah. So the dupatta has gone from the top, the bottom has become like a Western wear, right? It's become knitwear fabric, which is more convenient and more comfortable, right? And even the top, the salwar top also has become knitwear and all sorts of designs and shapes there, right? So it's sort of become very westernized, but at the same time it's Indian. Right? Now you will know this only if you go and observe in the market. Right? If your observation space is very small, you will say, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do something. I think this is a great opportunity. Instead of jumping into it and starting to build something, I would rather spend a lot of time on observing. Where is the large market? What are people really wearing? Right? What are people really doing? How are they using? And then jump in only if the market is very, very large and you want this to be the love of your life, right? There is no such thing as building a great company for 5 years and selling it off. Nothing comes out of it, right? You have to say, I want to dedicate the rest of my life to this company. And you will do it probably because it's a very great market, a very exciting market. And only then you will be able to do something, right? There is no such thing as a short-term gig where you make money, get out and retire after. It doesn't happen actually. Most entrepreneurs.
What are you saying? You're saying IPO is not the great exit.
It is not, Dheeraj. I'll tell you what, only the companies where the founders commit their whole life to the company, only those companies go to a great IPO, by the way, right? If Falguni Nair, for example, from Nykaa says that, I'm going to retire a year after the IPO, you should see the response the market will give. Yes, it will be completely opposite, right? That's the point. Yes. So it is. I think entrepreneurship is not about making money at all. It's a choice of a lifestyle. And I have seen that people who come for a short term think of it as a gig. It never works out. You have to dedicate the rest of your life. Right? It's a very hard choice, and you want to do that commitment to a right market only.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because you have to stay with that. It's like a marriage.
You stay with that. Yeah, absolutely. Oh no, Dheeraj, marriages are different, by the way. Much shorter commitment.
Commitment. Even tougher than that. And what's your relationship, Anand, with the founders? I mean, what are the leadership principles you apply there? What's there to learn for us from there?
Dheeraj, people become founders because they don't want to take direction from anybody. Right? In a country of 125 people, right? I want to select founders who need zero help from me. They don't need my help from me. They don't need advice from me. They don't need anything from me. At the best, they want me to be a little bit of a sparring partner, a little bit of brainstorming, right? Bouncing off some ideas, right? And I have to create an environment of comfort where they can come and discuss anything with me, knowing very well that they can disagree with me and still do whatever they want to do, right? That's what I offer. That is all I offer. In fact, one of my USPs is that we will not do board meetings. No board meeting, nothing. Till there's a third investor or fourth investor comes into the play. India Quotient as a firm, we don't believe in board meetings. We don't believe in giving instructions to founders, and we treat them as peers. We typically, have a inclination to learn from what the founders are telling us. Right? And the other thing that I provide to founders, Dheeraj, is patience. Right. So there are two things you need to build a company: capital and patience.
Yeah.
The world has plenty of capital and very little patience. At the seed stage, a founder should be in an environment of patience.
Yeah.
I mean, when a company is 3 years old and not going anywhere, you need somebody to say, well, don't worry, it's okay.
It'll happen.
It'll happen, right? Let's hang on. Right? That's what you need to offer to them. That's all. In fact, there is no advice, gyan, all that is overrated. In a country of 125 crore people, if you pick founders to fund who need gyan from you, what's the point? I mean, you're not doing a good job, right? I mean, as an investor, I will pick people who are very, very capable. They don't need any help. They just need patience from me. That's what I want to give.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Anand. It's been such a great conversation, and thank you for making time for this.
Welcome, Dheeraj.
So there's one section that we typically do, Anand. I don't know if you have time, where we do a reverse. So if you want to ask any quick questions, so I don't know if you have time.
Said something.
But you can make up anything if you want. If you have time, we could do that.
Hey, so Dheeraj, tell me your favorite startup right now in the market.
Tell me your favorite startup. Wow, it's I would say boat right now because we work for them as well.
Well, good. Yeah. You have to be loyal to your customers.
Yeah.
And besides boat, any favorite D2C brand that you use?
Favorite D2C brands? I would say I have a lot of heart for how the cosmetic brands are building up, say Sugar, etc. A lot of heart for, because I've done a lot of work in FMCG and it's hard. FMCG is so hard, and I have a lot of heart for these guys building their brands and finding success.
Yeah. Any one company where you were confused as to why it's doing well? Any one startup?
A lot of the fantasy players, actually.
You're confused?
I mean, yeah, I'm quite confused. I mean, maybe if you can explain anything about that.
Again, yeah, I mean, out of my circle of competence, again, same thing, right? And that's the beauty of it. Assuming that they're all doing really well, right?
Yeah.
This is yet another audience where we have no idea, right? I mean, it's not people like us.
Yeah. There's something working, but it's sometimes. Yeah.
I have the same feeling for crypto, by the way. I have no how come crypto is doing so well in India.
Yeah.
Dheeraj, what would be your favorite city?
My favorite city would be my hometown, Patna.
Nice. If you were to start a brand today, right?
Yeah.
What would it be?
Brand. I think it'll have to do something with content for the mass of India, for the new majority of India, I would say.
Okay. Any favorite YouTube channels?
YouTube channels?
Or any content player that you like?
See, in terms of OTT, you're saying. See,
OTT anything. I mean, any content. It could be media.
Yeah, I'm saying Prime is trying to go down a bit. I feel, I think Netflix has caught in the 50 million game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say Prime, MX, those platforms. But I would say YouTube, right? My bet actually is on YouTube because that's long tail, accessible. I mean, we just did a shoot last week, Anand, with a influencer, and we paid that influencer the same money that we pay Bollywood celebrities.
Wow, nice. I'm Anand Lunia on Twitter and not much on LinkedIn. My email is anand@indiaquotient.in. So largely Twitter and email.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye. One of the biggest things I learned from Anand today is that in the Silicon Valley, you build for what you use. In India, however, you build for what others use. I loved his Redbus example where he spoke about how a foreign investor he had pitched Redbus to was checking amongst his 5-star hotel community whether they have used Redbus. Not understanding, of course, that's a totally different segment that travels by bus in a country such as India. India needs its own language, its own UX UI. We are about colors, we are about visuals, and we are about sharing. Anand spoke about how when we are sending a happy birthday message on, say, WhatsApp, we are more interested in how our message is helping us express our creativity. Here, the birthday message is about us, not about who we are sending it to. It's insights such as this that help you succeed in India. Anand says the founder is the king. According to him, the founder is also the key. The market will extract a great product from a founder who's connected to the ground. He speaks about how Warren Buffett makes it a point to go to the same place for breakfast that he always did and lives a life that's connected to reality. It's critical that you connected to the pulse of the people if you want to really succeed. Well, those were my learnings from today's conversation. What were yours? Do tag me on my Twitter handle Dheeraj_Sinha or leave your comments at speakeasywithdheerajsinha.com. If you like this podcast, you can explore other amazing podcasts on the IVM Podcast app and website. You can follow them on social media at IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for listening.
Given the unprecedented times our nation is going through, where positive is now a dreaded word, Smile India gets you delightful news from across the country about people and places that continue to spread the much-needed hope and positive vibes. I am Shifa Maitra, and you can hear Smile India with me every Thursday on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Oh, and did I tell you Smile India is available in both English and Hindi.
Remember the days when our granny used to narrate once upon a time stories? Let's bring back the good old days of moral stories with Storytime Tamil. Hi, I am Ravishankar Balachandran, host of Storytime Tamil podcast. I would like you to entertain and educate your children with stories from Storytime Tamil. Tune in to the new episode sharp at 7 p.m. every day on IVM website, IVM podcast app, YouTube channel, or wherever you get your podcast from.